Well, it seems I have angered the internet, and especially V8 owners, those that own Coyote Fords, or expected me to pick the Ford Coyote as the #1 reliability truck half-ton. Instead, I actually chose the Ram platform with a Hurricane and a ZF transmission because I feel like so far from what I've seen in forums and Facebook groups and NHTSA, they have had fewer troubles than any of the other brands. Now, I'm going to address specifically in this video why I personally would not choose a 5-liter Coyote in a truck application. I'm sure I'm going to make a lot of people upset again, but there were so many comments about the 5-liter Coyote and saying, why didn't you choose it? That's obviously the most reliable platform. I don't know that it's going to be any more reliable than these turbos. I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you why at my elevation here, why I wouldn't pick it. Now, the first reason that I would not choose, actually most V8s nowadays, that includes GM's 5.3, the 6.2 liter, and now the 5-liter V8. This is just one reason. I've got several reasons why, and you guys can agree or disagree in the comments. Cylinder deactivation. A lot of people don't even know that their 5-liter Coyotes have cylinder deactivation from the Gen 3. Now, I will say if I was forced to pick a V8, and decide what had better cylinder deactivation, Ford's, I think, is better than General Motors as far as reliability so far, but it's only been out since 2021. You can't honestly say that, well, it's been reliable and it's been since 2021. That's not a test of reliability. Give me 10, 15 years, let's see how this thing holds up. So here's what they do. They have deactivation rocker arms. I'm going to show you how these work. So while it might be slightly more robust than General Motors system, this is how it activates your rockers.
The PCM actuates the solenoids to deactivate the cylinders. The solenoid controls the oil pressure for actuating a spring-loaded plunger in the rocker arm. When the solenoid is actuated, it applies engine oil pressure to the plunger in the rocker arm, pushing it back and releasing the freewheel mechanism of the rocker arm. When the cam of the camshaft presses against the rocker arm, it is pressed downwards, but without compressing the valve spring and actuating the valve.
So if you take a look at that design, I think there's enough moving parts there, and with a solenoid built in, I think eventually they're going to have trouble. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll last 200, 300,000 miles. But just taking a look at that, I would just prefer not to have that in my V8 engine. If I want a V8, I just want to have a non-cylinder deactivation V8, kind of like what I have in my old Toyota, the 5.7. It's just port injection, no cylinder deactivation, don't have any trouble with any of this stuff with higher mileage. All right, now reason number 2 why the Coyote just isn't on my list. And I realize that the 2.7 EcoBoost has this same issue. It does have a wet oil pump driven belt. This is a Kevlar belt, and they say it will last the lifetime of the engine. I encourage you all to go look up what these manufacturers think the lifetime of their engine is and what the repair cost is for stuff like this. Now, the 2.7, some of the others, as long as you keep up with your oil maintenance, they seem to be doing okay, but they are going to be a maintenance item. Even the Duramax has this on the back of the engine, which is a terrible location at 200,000 miles. But you're spending thousands of dollars to put in new wet oil pump belts so that your engine doesn't implode. I just think that is planned obsolescence at its best. Now, I realize a little contradictory since I picked the 2.7 over this, but there it is nonetheless. Now, the third reason, at least for me personally, so I live at about 5,000 feet. I tow from 5,000 to 8,000, 10,000 feet occasionally. And this graph, I've owned V8s. I still own a V8 in my Toyota. And I've had bad luck with 5 liters, whether they were in my boats and comparing them to like a 5.7 or a 6.2. I just get more torque out of them because I'm already down on power being at this elevation. So for me, even though I don't like the unreliability that might come with forced induction, it's certainly a lot better for me personally. Now, for you at sea level, might not make that big a difference. But here is a graph on the blue line. This is a 5-liter Coyote, and this is the torque curve. It's okay, but when you get up to my elevation and you compare it to something like a 2.7, the 2.7 is going to outperform the Coyote at my elevation. A big part of this is how far you have to get that engine revved up. If you talk to most people that own the Coyotes, they actually love the sound of them. I'm just kind of getting old, and I like quieter trucks. Even in my Toyota 5.7, it's not super loud when I wrap it up, probably because it's in an SUV package. But when I'm towing a boat or something in that, I can keep it at like 3,000, 3,500, and it's not terribly noisy in the cab. Like my family doesn't complain. I've been in 5 liters. I've heard others complain about it, and it's really cool, like buzzing down the street. I would love it in like a Mustang package. Sounds awesome. But in a truck, after a couple hours of towing or something, I just don't want to hear that droning and that loud exhaust. That's just who I am. I know a lot of younger guys just love it. That's the visceral feeling they get. But noise doesn't mean you're moving faster. So for me, that's just part of it. Another reason why I wouldn't choose it. And look, man, you guys can stare, everybody can stare at dyno graphs all day, but where the rubber meets the road or the boat meets the water, that's when you really realize the difference. And I get it, like old or even like fuel injected 5.0 liter MPI Mercury engines, they're nothing like the Coyote. They're not going to have quite as much torque. But it's very similar principle when you compare year to year, like an old Merc 5.7 with fuel injection to the fuel injected 5.0s. Getting out of the water just with like people on my boat, it's the exact same thing that I feel in a truck or a car with a 5 liter versus like a 5.7 or a 6.2 or something that's boosted. I do feel a little less torque on the low end, and at my elevation, it's just more pronounced. I think if you were down at sea level again, it'd probably be fine. But I'll challenge anybody to come up to this elevation and tow. If you look at towing tests with a lot of these things, they do okay when they wrap them up. They do fine, but they're loud and they got to be in a certain RPM range to really perform. Now, I will say at least I think Ford has eliminated most of the oil consumption issues. I don't see a lot of them on the new models like 21 plus. There are still a ton of people in the 5 liter groups that are having this issue, but it's all from past designs that have been corrected by Ford. I think modern V8s are just, they got pushed too far by these EPA standards, and I think it's just really tough to make them super reliable. Now, while most people aren't having the oil consumption issue, I do find stuff like this still. I mean, these are 21 and newer, so this is actually a Boulder, Colorado near me. Ford F-150 has 47,000 miles, been serviced every time it was supposed to. The engine failed. I'm not sure. I thought that from 2021 on, they were supposed to have this new design on the Coyote so they weren't burning oil, but I do see some complaints in NHTSA about this still. So yes, V8s can be reliable. A lot of people love these 5 liters. I have neighbors with them. When you look at all the modern engine problems, they're probably on par with some of these turbo platforms with reliability, even though they have all this stuff that I might not like. They're probably still similar reliability. That's why I personally wouldn't choose the Coyote, but that's just me. Why would you choose it? Why would you choose it over, say, the 2.7 EcoBoost or the Ram Hurricane? Do you guys love the sound? Is the V8 sound really that big of a deal to you as a feature? Or am I just getting super old and I don't want the droning in the cab the entire ride? And just to leave you with some of the comments from that last video, that's why I made this video. If it absolutely had to be a new truck, I'd take a Ram 1500 with a Hemi V8 and they would immediately install a programmer to defeat or lock out any cylinder deactivation. So again, people buying things and then having to modify them to make them the way they want, which is frustrating. The next one down, all these companies made reliable V8s in the past. We also want right to repair. Yeah, I do too. I don't see any of the modern V8s as being super reliable. I just don't. They're not going to be like 500,000 mile engines. That's just my opinion. And here's probably the toughest comments for me. Ooh, imagine making a YouTube video about half-ton powertrains and intentionally leaving out the 5 liter Coyote V8. Strange take. And then the next guy, he's a car guy, not a truck guy. I was wondering that also. Would take the Coyote 5.0 over the 2.7 any day. Any of the big 3 V8s are more reliable. I have an L86 pushing 200,000 and an LMG pushing 300,000. No engine issues ever. He said turbo motors last time I checked. 5.0 has no turbo. So I did say that at the beginning of the video, but to these guys' credit, I didn't actually put that in the title. I didn't stipulate it in the title, so, there's some gray area there. And keep in mind, another reason I'm not a big fan of either Ford or GM right now is that 10-speed transmission and the valve body issues. I don't care if they have the parts available or not. I think they are kind of just leaving the customers with a high-priced kind of piece of garbage as far as the valve body is concerned in a lot of these transmissions. So no matter what engine you choose in GM and Ford, I see a lot of these transmission problems early on. I see shifting problems, even if they're still on the road. A lot of people complaining about shift behavior. So that's just another reason why I picked the Ram over these. It's not necessarily like a turbo versus naturally aspirated, but considering where I live, that's a big part of it, and I should have added it in the last video. Anyway, let me know your thoughts as always. I'm sure this video is going to have some pitchforks thrown in the comments. People love the Coyote. They think it's super reliable. That's totally fine. I think people need to just buy what they want and buy what they can live with and be happy with day to day. That's really the key to it. It's not necessarily what I think. I'm just kind of leading you through the logic and how I arrive at these decisions. Anyway, thanks for watching. Till next time.